Hi, mystery writers. It's Write a Killer Mystery. I'm Zero Terror, and this is where we talk about making your good mystery great. And today I want to talk about dialogue because it seems to be a stumbling block for a lot of writers, not just beginning writers. And there's a lot of information there out about dialogue tags and when to use them and when to not use them, and do you use adverbs and all that sort of thing. But I want to get to the root of dialogue and how you can make your dialogue more believable and integral to your story. And it all starts with your character. So, dialogue adds character to your characters. And how your characters speak reveals their personality. And especially in mysteries, characters reveal their character even when they want to hide it. So you have a special challenge if you're a mystery writer. So the challenge is to make the language each character uses appropriate to that character and distinct from other characters in the story. And that way your readers understand who's talking. So you aren't saddled with a lot of he said, she said, dialogue tags, because the words and language within the dialogue itself help your readers know who's speaking. I like to think of dialogue as a verbal action. So, your characters work through the story with the actions that they do, and dialogue and the way they speak is another action. And I think you can give yourself permission to think of dialogue as action, and it takes off some of those outside imposed things about dialogue, because dialogue, just like anything else in your story, is meant to move the story forward. You're going to reveal your character and mainly move that story forward. So when a character speaks, they're actually moving the story forward if you're doing this right. If they're not moving the story forward, you need to take a look at whether that whole section needs to be there or not. So when the language and rhythm and voice is clear for each character, your dialogue not only flows in your story, you'll minimize the need for repetitive dialogue tags. So, how do you prepare for writing dialogue? And I think the best way to write distinctive dialogue is to know your character. So, it all starts with your character background. Add dialogue segments to your character background. So when you're doing all those things, who their father and their mother was, and what was their great trauma in their childhood, and whatever it is that you put in the background of your character, just add some dialogue. How would this character say things? What's one of their favorite phrases? So speech habits, like repeatedly saying, okay, um, or turning statements into questions. What is it that's unique about that character's dialogue? So all the way back in your story preparation, in the character background, you want to think about how that character speaks, what they say. And for mystery suspects, you want to add details about actions, either conscious or unconscious, that they make while telling a lie. So, because we know as mystery writers, characters tell lies to hide their secrets. And so, what is it that they're doing when they're lying? What are those clues that you can put into your story as that character speaks to, when somebody looks back, go, oh, he wasn't telling the truth then. So another way that you can prepare for dialogue is research. And this is a lot of feet on the ground research is what I call it. So if your character has a special profession, you can interview people who also have that profession and listen to what they say and how they speak. Is their speech clipped? Is it flowing? Do they speak in long flowing sentences? Um, just listen to the rhythm of their speech, and also listen to the vocabulary they use. Um, and also, the people around you, the people in your life. This is a time tested someone you know you can use as a speech model. So, a female biochemist and a male who breeds Bengal cats will not just have a different vocabulary, but their speech rhythms and favorite phrases are going to differ. And you can use that to your advantage when you're creating dialogue for your characters. So listen to people talking. Listen to people talking. This is just a thing that writers do. Uh, so in cafes or on buses or trains or at the airport or any public venue, listen to the people around you and how they talk, and how does a housewife with 3 kids, how is her speech different than an IT guy who hangs out in the cafe all day? Um, so watch characters in movies and television series and YouTube to grab dialogue details. You can't, just grab those dialogue details and add them to your character background, and you're going to have a base on which to base your dialogue when your character actually starts speaking. So, and another thing, and I've talked about this before, is casting your characters. Use a famous person, a movie star, sports hero, politician, whatever you want, whoever it is that you want to use. That's a real life person. Um, it can be an actor or it can be an acquaintance, somebody that you know, um, and that to cast your character. And when you have that character, oh, this guy is just like my friend Michael. Now listen to your friend Michael and how they use their voice and how they speak. So borrow phrases and intonation and body movements to create dialogue details for your characters. And those are the 3 main ways that you can build your dialogue background as you're creating your character background. I think it's a great thing to do. So the first time that your character speaks in your story, you already have a good idea of how they speak, how they act when they tell lies. So use syntax and vocabulary and tone to help your reader understand who is speaking. And the more you individualize speech, the better your reader understands the character. So it's kind of a double win. Um, your dialogue is distinct, and the readers understand who is speaking just by the way they speak. So let's talk about a little bit about dialogue in your story now that you have all this background material and you've got little bits and phrases and um, pet sayings that a character may say. Because when you understand your character, you get inside their head and think the way they think. So what they say in dialogue reflects their thinking. So you're the author, you're creating this character. So understanding your character's motivation helps you create dialogue that's unique to that character. Talking like your character becomes innate the more you understand. So you're going to avoid a lot of dialogue traps that beginning writers often make, like stilted and unnatural speech, or all characters sounding the same, and dialogue that doesn't move the story forward, and or flamboyant dialogue tags that you just need to edit out. because the way your character speaks is going to give your reader what they need to know. And too many dialogue tags. He said, she said. If everybody sounds the same, you have to make sure that your reader knows who's speaking. Whereas if your dialogue is distinct to that character, it's a lot easier for your reader to understand, and that means you don't have to do he said after each piece of dialogue. So I want to go back to thinking about dialogue as action. If you think of it this way, this is just another thing that this character does. This is the way they speak, as opposed to this is the way they walk or sit or move or fight. Um, if you think of it as action, you'll avoid most of these dialogue traps because the words your character says reflects the character inner workings in the same way their other actions do. I, I don't know, it's kind of a trick of the mind. If you think of it as action, this is what this character is doing. In this case, it just happens to be talking as opposed to walking across the room or hiking up the hill or whatever. And when you know your characters well, all the actions, including dialogue, come from that character's internal motivations. And it's integral to the story. So characters speak when they need, rather than you thinking, oh, I need some dialogue in this scene, because it's all going to be part of your story. And you'll stop worrying about getting dialogue right and use it as another storytelling tool. Okay, I hope that helps. I know so many people struggle with dialogue, and I think you need to step back a little bit and get into your character and think about what they're thinking. And if you've done your background work and gathered some tidbits of phrases that they use, it'll really help your dialogue come alive and help make that character come alive. Okay. If you found this helpful, please subscribe and click that little notification bell so you won't miss another session of Write a Killer Mystery. And I will see you next time. And in the meantime, write a killer mystery.